Pompeo with us, of course, the former Secretary of State, Fox News contributor, get his read on the significance of his successor's trip here. I believe this is the third time in little more than that many months. But the fact of the matter is nothing seems to be easing not only the spreading fears of the war secretary, but more to the point, the idea that more folks could be getting involved. What do you think?
Well, Neil, good morning. 3 months since the barbarism that happened on October 7th, the rapes, the pillaging, the brutality. You know, too many people actually have just turned on to the next thing. I'm so glad you all are still covering it, reporting it. I still have all those hostages, including Americans, being held. And Secretary Blinken now with a very difficult problem set because his boss, the President of the United States, refuses to identify the actual problem child, which is the Islamic Republic of Iran. Each of these things you identified, whether it's the rockets from Hezbollah in the north or the challenges in the Red Sea coming from these knuckleheads in Yemen called Houthis that are terrorists, but they refuse to call terrorists. If you don't identify the real problem, this is coming from Tehran. If you can't accept that as a central premise and respond to that appropriately, you're right, Neil. You do risk continued escalation, and you create enormous challenges for diplomats.
You know, one item that at least this past week, Secretary, raised my eyebrows, and more the reaction to it, is when ISIS claimed responsibility for this deadly Iran bomb attack that killed more than 80 people. But ISIS was claiming responsibility when a lot of people were pointing the finger at Israel that it might have had something to do with that. And it just reminded me how much Iran is a focus here, and that not only do a lot of moderate Arab nations fear and don't flip over Iran, but now terrorist group like ISIS itself. I'm just wondering what you make of the significance of that.
Yeah. Look, I don't know if that claim is real. I am highly confident that this was an Israeli. I don't have any inside knowledge, but the Israelis, like Americans, we don't kill civilians in the way that happened in these two bombings. So this was someone other than Israel or the United States behind this attack.
Then why should they take a bow? Why would they take a bow, even if that were not the case, like you say?
I'm sorry. Why should
ISIS take a bow and say that we're behind this?
Oh, because everybody loves the strong horse. Right? You always want it. These groups always make claims. Maybe it is ISIS that did this, but groups often make claims that they had no responsibility for so that they can tell their people, come fight with us, come take my $50 to come work for a week. We're going to be the winners, bet on our team. And so everyone wants to claim greatness. You know, I always think back to where we were almost exactly 3 years ago when President Biden came in. We had more nations recognizing Israel's right to exist. We had relative stability in the West Bank with the Palestinians. We had the Abraham Accords where countries had said, yeah, let's all work together. And Iran was isolated. And the reason you're having Americans attacked 100 times, Neil, since October 7th, is because the Biden administration flipped the script. These are evil actors. And when you think, boy, I can negotiate with them, I can give $6 billion to them, and they'll stop taking American hostages, that is dangerously naive and puts American people at risk.
You know, Secretary, while I have you here, I talked to a lot of prominent Republicans on the anniversary of January 6th and what happened up on the Hill, and that the party has coalesced around, and polls could change, and I think you've mentioned that yourself, sir. That Donald Trump, it's as if that didn't happen, or if it did, it was unfairly portrayed or taken advantage of by left-wing media. I think that was the gist of what Governor DeSantis told me. But what do you think all these years later about the former president's role in that, maybe whether he galvanized that? A lot of Republicans then were mad at him about that, but not mad anymore.
Oh, look, it wasn't America's finest day, Neil. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But what Liz Cheney and the progressive left have made out of that day is grossly disproportionate to the reality of the risks to the United States. I mean, I think you can see that. Just stare at the 4 years of the Trump administration and stare at the 3 years of the Biden administration. And if you're asking which president was more likely to do something like, try and overturn the Supreme Court and refund student loans that you have no authority to do. I mean, this has been a reckless administration. And I think the American people can feel that no matter what the Biden administration tries to say about how, gosh, the economy's good. I just don't think the American people feel that the same way they did during the 4 years that President Trump was in charge.
We shall see. Secretary, very good having you again. Have a happy New Year.
Thank you, Neil. Bless you. Happy New Year to you as well, sir.